Hello everyone, welcome to Business School 101. Have you ever wondered how the US government makes decisions that shape the entire country? Or how power is balanced to ensure no single branch dominates? The US government operates under a system designed for accountability and fairness. But what are the three branches, how do they work together, and how does the system of checks and balances keep everything in line? Are there some real-world examples? In this video, I'll discuss these questions with you. Section 1, Overview of the U.S. Government Structure. The U.S. government is built on a foundation known as the separation of powers, which divides authority among three distinct branches, the legislative, executive, and judicial. This system was designed by the framers of the Constitution to prevent any one branch from becoming too powerful. Each branch has its own responsibilities, but they are all interconnected in a system known as checks and balances, which allows each branch to limit the powers of the others. Let's break down how each branch works and the role it plays in the government. Section 2, the Legislative Branch, Congress. The legislative branch is responsible for making laws and is composed of two bodies, the House of Representatives and the Senate, together known as Congress. Part 1. The House of Representatives. The House has 435 members, each representing a district based on population. Representatives serve two-year terms. The House is responsible for initiating spending bills and has the sole power to impeach federal officials. Part 2. The Senate. The Senate has 100 members, with each state having 2 senators regardless of its population. Senators serve 6-year terms. The Senate confirms presidential appointments, such as federal judges and cabinet members, and has the power to approve treaties. Part 3. Example: the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 is a clear example of how the legislative branch functions. Introduced in the House of Representatives as a COVID-19 relief package, it first went through committee review and revisions before passing in the House. The bill then moved to the Senate, where changes were made, such as adjusting the income cap for stimulus payments. After the Senate approved the amended bill, it was sent back to the House, which accepted the changes. Finally, on March 11, 2021, President Joe Biden signed the bill into law, authorizing $1.9 trillion in economic relief. This process demonstrates how a bill moves through both chambers of Congress and becomes law with the President's approval. Section 3, the Executive Branch, the President. The Executive Branch is headed by the President, who is responsible for enforcing and executing the laws passed by Congress. The President is supported by the Vice President, the Cabinet, and various federal agencies. Part 1. The President, elected every 4 years. The President acts as the head of state, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, and the chief diplomat in foreign affairs. The President also has the power to veto legislation, which can block bills from becoming law, although Congress can override a veto with a 2/3 majority. Part 2. The Cabinet. The Cabinet consists of the heads of 15 executive departments, such as the Department of Defense and the Department of Education, who advise the President on issues related to their respective areas. Part 3. Example: a prominent example of the executive branch in action is President Donald Trump's Executive Order 13780, issued in March 2017, commonly known as the travel ban. This order restricted entry into the U.S. for citizens from several predominantly Muslim countries, citing national security concerns. Although the order faced legal challenges and went through revisions, it was ultimately upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court in 2018. This example highlights how the executive branch, through the President's executive authority, can implement significant policy changes, such as in immigration, without congressional approval, while still being subject to judicial review. Section 4, the Judicial Branch, the Courts. The Judicial Branch interprets laws and ensures they are applied in accordance with the U.S. Constitution. This branch is headed by the Supreme Court but includes lower federal courts as well. Part 1. The Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. The Supreme Court consists of 9 justices who are appointed by the President and confirmed by the Senate. They serve for life or until they choose to retire. The court has the power of judicial review, meaning it can declare laws or executive actions unconstitutional. Part 2. Lower federal courts. These include district courts and courts of appeals, where most federal cases begin. Lower courts handle everything from civil disputes to federal criminal cases, with decisions sometimes being appealed to the Supreme Court. Part 3. Example: a notable recent example of the judicial branch's role is in 2022, the court blocked the Biden administration's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for large private employers, which had been issued by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA. The mandate required businesses with 100 or more employees to ensure their workers were vaccinated or undergo regular testing. The court ruled that OSHA overstepped its authority, emphasizing that such a sweeping public health measure required direct legislative action by Congress. This decision highlights the judiciary's role in checking executive power and interpreting the limits of federal agencies' regulatory authority. Section 5. Checks and Balances. The checks and balances system is what keeps the three branches of government accountable to one another, preventing any single branch from gaining too much power. Each branch has specific powers that can limit or influence the actions of the others. Part 1. Legislative Checks. Congress has several powers to check the executive branch, including the ability to override presidential vetoes with a two-thirds majority in both the House and Senate. Congress also controls federal spending and holds the power to impeach and remove the president or federal judges. One recent example is the impeachment of President Donald Trump in 2019. The House of Representatives impeached him on charges of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, although the Senate later acquitted him. This illustrates Congress's constitutional power to hold the executive branch accountable. Part 2. Executive Checks. The President can check Congress by vetoing legislation, preventing it from becoming law unless Congress overrides the veto with a two-thirds majority. The President also wields influence by appointing federal judges, including Supreme Court justices, although these appointments require Senate confirmation. A recent example is President Joe Biden's appointment of Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson in 2022, who was confirmed by the Senate. This demonstrates the President's power to shape the judiciary, subject to the legislative check of Senate approval. Part 3. Judicial Checks. The judicial branch can check both the executive and legislative branches through judicial review, the power to declare laws or executive actions unconstitutional. A notable recent example is the Supreme Court's ruling in 2020 on DACA. The court ruled that the Trump administration's attempt to end the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals (DACA) program was unlawful because the decision was made in an arbitrary and capricious manner, underscoring the judiciary's role in checking executive actions. Section 6. Summary. To sum up, the U.S. government is built on three pillars: the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, each with its own responsibilities but interconnected through a system of checks and balances. The legislative branch makes the laws, the executive branch enforces them, and the judicial branch interprets them. This balance of power is what keeps the government fair and functional, ensuring that no one branch can dominate the others. By understanding how these branches work together, we gain a deeper appreciation for how the U.S. government serves and protects its citizens. That wraps up today's topic. If you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to leave a comment below. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more insights on business and civil policy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.